G'day folks, it's Laura here, and today I'm going to do a flip cup pour, this time predominantly in the green range in the spectrum. So my colours today include dark cobalt violet hue, phtalocyanine emerald, brilliant green, green light, iridescent green yellow, iridescent gold, and titanium white. Now with these darker colours, I'm only going to use a very small amount of paint, and hopefully they will stay together a little bit better in the pour and not completely overwhelm the painting. So for my pouring medium today, I've been trialing new pouring medium mixes recently, and the reason is because my previous pouring medium, my main component of that pouring medium, which is the Taubman's neutral base, they changed the formula and they made it a little bit more opaque, and I wasn't really happy with that effect. And so what I've done is I've changed, or at least I'm trialing, a new formula that includes a little bit less of that neutral base and a new pouring medium, a new proprietary pouring medium from Atelier. Now I can get Atelier in Australia, a 4-litre bottle, for a reasonable price, and to be honest, that's actually what dictates how I design my pouring mediums. So I want to get the good effect with the actual pour itself, but it needs to be within a reasonable price, because otherwise I just go straight to using proprietary pouring mediums all the time. They do tend to be extraordinarily expensive though. So I've included some of this Atelier pouring medium, and I've also got Jo Sonja's gloss varnish. Now in previous pours I did trial increasing the gloss varnish, but I had a major problem with the dried results. Even though the wet results looked okay, the dried results got a lot of pock marking, and so that's not something that I am happy with going forwards, and so I've retained the low amount of gloss varnish, and instead I'm adding a proprietary pouring medium. So I'm just going to trial this one today and see how it turns out. Now for the colours that I used less paint, I will also use less of the pouring medium. And for the Pebeo paints, because they're a lot more viscous, I'm only using a very small amount of the pouring medium to start with. I'll mix those up well before adding more pouring medium down the track. So just going to add a little bit more pouring medium to the Pebeo paints now. So it's time to layer my cup now, and for this I'm going to use my standard cell activator. I'll link to a video on how to make this if you're interested. So I'll be using some of the white cell activator And I might also use a little of the lamp black cell activator as well. I'm going to start by layering the bottom and the sides of the cup with some of this white cell activator. So I can already tell that this new pouring medium is quite a lot thicker than my previous pouring medium, particularly with the Pebeo paints. So I didn't actually add any water to thin out the mix with the Pebeo paints. And so this is actually a very thick pouring medium. So I've already prepared my canvas. This is the back of my canvas. I've added painter's tape as well as giant push pins. So it's time to flip the cup now. Wow, this pouring medium mixture is really thick in some spots. I can even see the bulge here. Wow, very interesting. There is still plenty of paint left in my cup. So I'll get that out and I'll just spread it around the edges and the corners. So to start with, I just need to pop all those bubbles. Wow, so this pour is really interesting. There's a lot of complex color mixes as well as patterns in the center of this pour, which is lovely because when I expand it, that center will also expand. So I think where we need to go from here is just make sure that the paint is actually balanced and then give it a bit of a gentle spin. Okay, a gentle spin to start with. So we're definitely already going off the top of the canvas. Just pull the paint down a little bit. Okay, we're off the corners on the left and we just have the corners on the right to go. Just put this slightly off center so it's more likely that the paint will come down in this direction. Wow, very interesting. So this pour was very bubbly, so I managed to get some of the bubbles out in the first round with the heat gun, but I've had a whole number of tiny ones come up as well. But I don't think this was as bad as when I used the high amount of gloss varnish in the previous experimental pouring medium. So that's probably a good thing. I'm just going to shift the paint down in the right hand corner direction just a little bit. This is a really interesting piece. I'm not super keen on what's going on in the center there, so I think that if I use this one for a wildlife painting, I might actually put the focal point, the wildlife, in that kind of middle section so that some of this muddy section will be obscured. But other than that, this has got some beautiful elements. So I just love the little traces and the very complex kind of colors in this right-hand corner. I really like these beautiful layers coming up through here. And I've got some very interesting lacing in a few sections around the painting. So on the whole, pretty happy with this. What I'm noticing now actually is a bit of cells are actually coming up in some of these sections. So I'm quite interested to know whether that's going to keep developing and those cells are going to keep getting bigger as the paint dries. But for now, I just need to cover the corners and take the paint off the edges. I think I might be in two minds about this new experimental pouring medium for now. I think perhaps it might be a little bit too thick when you use Pebeo paints straight, and that I'll need to dilute those a little bit. So I guess one of my next experiments might be using the new pouring medium but with just Jo Sonja paints to see whether it's thick enough for the Jo Sonja on their own. On the whole, I'm pretty happy with this piece. But I am a little bit concerned about these cells that are coming up randomly at the end. So that's not something that I'm super keen on. I think it might have happened because there were still some bubbles in some of those lower layers and they're bringing welling paint with them. So probably that's part of the problem with the Pebeo paints being so thick and the pouring medium also being so thick is that those bubbles don't get released and they can't escape even when I use the heat gun in the initial pour. On the whole, I think this was a useful experiment. So thanks very much everyone for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comments.